Okay, as our attendees come in, why don't we get it started? So, good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending our webinar this evening. My name is Lisa Lee. I'm the Dean for Student Services at the New York College of Pediatric Medicine. We're really excited to introduce our students to you so you can better learn more about our program. So why don't we just go right into the introductions? And also throughout the webinar, we have some questions prepared that we are going to throw at our students, but feel free if you have any questions for our students to type it into the chat or into the question box. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so why don't we start out with Emily? Emily is currently our student in her second year, class of 2026. So Emily?
Hi guys. So like Dean Lee said, my name is Emily. I went to undergrad. I did 5 years at Butler University in Indianapolis, Indiana. So I'm a Midwest girl at heart. So New York was a little bit of an adjustment for me. A little bit about my background. I was a college athlete in college. So with that, I was on the track and cross country team. So that's where I kind of got my interest into podiatry, where I realized runners really need people that know, the lower extremity versus the whole body in general. It was kind of a broken piece that I saw missing, and I was excited to kind of be a part of it, or at least make an impact in runners' lives, just because that was such a big part of my life. But yeah, so I'm second year, just starting or just finishing my first semester of second year. So in finals and feeling all the final feelings.
Almost done. Okay, next up is Ellie. Ellie is one of our fourth year students, so if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Hi, oh my gosh. I'm Ellie. I'm a fourth year student. I am from Wayne, New Jersey, and then I did my undergrad at Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I studied biology with a minor in chemistry. I did my research in inorganic chemistry, and then I came to NYCPM. I'm in my fourth year, so I've kind of coming towards the end of my time at NYCPM, I guess, which sounds weird because fourth year is just starting. But so any questions about, the whole process, I probably am able to answer, whether it's like preclinical or clinical. My first 2 years, I lived in Harlem, and now I'm living in Long Island City in Queens, which has all been great. So yeah.
Thank you, Ellie. Why don't we just go to the question slide? And just for those that are attending, if you're not aware, NYCPM is located in New York City and Harlem, New York City. And so if you have any questions about what it's like to live in New York, feel free to throw those questions into the Q&A or the chat box. That said, why don't we sort of go through the curriculum, just the basic outline first. So Emily, maybe I can have you take the first 2 years. Oh, I see Talak is here. Okay, actually, you know what? Before you do that, I'm gonna have Talak introduce himself. Talak, can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry I'm late. I was having issues getting my computer to accept the.
No worries. You look icy. Looks good. Uh-oh, where's he going? Okay, maybe we will go.
It looks like he's at school. Maybe he's trying to figure it out.
Huh. Okay, you know what? Back to Emily. Emily, if you don't mind telling us what your first year and a half has been like so far, the courses that you've taken, the schedules and such.
Sure. So let's see. I guess I also meant to say that I majored in biology for my undergrad. I forgot to mention that. But so the first 2 years of medical school are kind of very introductory, where it's like you get to dip your feet, pun intended, into like all the different things that you're going to see in your clinical courses. So you'll start with like molecular biology, histology, physiology, um, genetics, biochem. So all of the, general courses are kind of put into your first year. And then your second semester, first year, you also get to do anatomy, where you get to go into a cadaver lab and have that experience, which is obviously like really important in your medical career. So, yeah.
And then your current semester 3?
Yes, semester 3 in your second year is tough. We just got pharmacology added to the semester, so we have kind of really bulky courses all in one semester, which is definitely testing, your drive and your determination. But it's going to be nice to get all of these hard courses over with, so that next semester will be a little bit easier. But yeah, this semester we are in. So the start of your second semester is lean, so lower extremity anatomy, which is obviously a very important course. We had, let's see, research class, PASS, which is physical assessment. So we had a standardized patient, and we got to go in and get graded on how we evaluate them and how we take a personal history, which was a really good course. And then let's see what else we had. Pathology, so you got to get a kind of look at slides and figure out different illnesses and stuff like that. And then infectious disease, which is always a fun course where you learn about every single virus, everything, single bacteria, and you kind of get to dive into that stuff.
Awesome. Actually, seems like Talak is back on with us. So Talak, I'm going to actually have you talk about semester 4 and your current third year. But before you do, if you don't mind introducing yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your undergraduate, and whatever you want to share with everyone.
Yeah, sorry I'm late. I finally got my computer to work, and then I said hi and then it died. So I ran upstairs and I'm on my phone now. I'm from Illinois. I did my undergrad in Iowa State University. Yeah, so I'm in my third year right now. We're past boards, and so now we can see patients and it's great. So fourth semester. Our fourth semester is going to be a little different than the 26's fourth semester. It's being that like pharmacology got moved to their third semester. So they like at NYCPM, like the there's the fourth semester is like an infamous semester in that it's like the most like trying time for at least the 26's, I believe. Now it's like going to be like the infamous third semester instead of the fourth semester. But for us, fourth semester was definitely a trying time in that we did like and it was nice to have like farm when it was, because it was right before boards, and boards was the boards prep period. I think NYCPM did a like great job with how they set up their scheduling, because we were in like preclinical skills, which is just like you start shadowing in the clinic. You're not in the clinic all the time, so it's not eating up too much of your time, but you have so much time to study for boards, and it's like on the student to like use that time wisely. And some students do, some students don't, but we had such a great board pass rate this year. We had a 92% board pass rate. Kudos to our class, like we did a great job. um, let's see. What else can I talk about?
Well, actually, in reference to the boards, your class did an excellent job. The national average, I believe, was 83%, so 92%. And then looking at the curve in terms of how your class performed, majority on the top 50 percentile. So kudos to your class for sure.
Yeah, we have a really bright class, so we are like very like supportive class. It's always been like every class has their own like, I guess, like attitudes. Our class has been very like supportive since the beginning. Everybody shares all their resources. We're very connected. When any of the students are having a tough time, everybody kind of like bands together to make sure that they're okay. Or like we like we have like folders that we have like with everybody else's resources, and I'd say our class is very like supportive. And I only can speak of my class. I'm not saying the other classes are not supportive, but I don't know the experience of everybody else's class. um yeah, and it's like fourth semester was really great because we started taking classes that started to give us an inkling of what podiatry is all about. Because I mean, like no matter how you like cut it, every podiatry school, the first like 1.5 years, they're the preclinical like courses. Like biochem's biochem everywhere you go, histology is histology everywhere you go. But then in the fourth semester, we had pod surge, we had functional orthopedics, we had podopediatrics. It was just finally getting like our toe in the water, and I guess no pun intended. I forgot we're in podiatry school. There that we're seeing what we will be seeing in the clinics, and so much of it carried over. If like I think NYCPM is, they give you all the tools, and then it's your like drive that makes all this very interesting. Like if you really want to know everything about podiatry, like they do a great job at laying it out for you, and then it's up to you to really like take advantage of that. And so much of the first 2 years had like, because of a lot of our classmates having so much diligence in the first couple years, it's really shown in clinic. Like the all the attendings have been very happy with our level of knowledge going into the clinics because we had so much fervor in the first 2 years. And when they ask us questions, we knew a lot of it. And it was, I think they were very happy to see it, that we actually like, we did pay attention the first 2 years. We did just try to make it through, you know, but
Actually, Talak, in the essence of time, if I can ask you to talk a little bit about your block schedule so far in
sure.
your year 3 as well.
I think block has been, and I think block is early. And so I think it's like, you can't make too many conclusions about block, but I do like it. I think that students that historically have felt that they're juggling too many courses at the same time are really thriving right now, because they can have like a very single track mind. Like if they're in medicine, they focus solely on medicine. If they're in orthopedics, they solely focus on orthopedics, and then surgery the same. I think that like there's, and because with the previous schedule, I think it is an improvement, because often when people were in their surgery rotation, they were taking exams for medicine, but a lot of it wasn't getting reinforced in the clinic because they weren't in surgery, or they weren't even doing the procedures if they were in their medicine like rotation. And so I think now you're in your medicine rotation, you're taking medicine courses, there's constant review. And so you're truly becoming like, yes, my orthopedic knowledge and my surgery knowledge is like zero right now. But once I go into those blocks, I'm sure I'll be a pseudo master at those things too. It's like, that's like, you're becoming like, so you're so integrated. Like I'm in my medicine block right now. I feel so comfortable with medicine. Every attending that's asked any questions, like we have a elective rotation on Long Island at the Nassau Medical Center. Every single question the attending asked when it related to medicine was answered, and they were very happy with our like knowledge as a group. And I think that being in the block has been really good for everybody, especially once everybody got their feet wet. I think initially there was some hesitance because we just got done with boards, everybody was tired, but I think that was going to happen regardless of what type of scheduling it was. But I think the block has been great.
Awesome. Ali, if I can actually ask you to maybe, because since you've experienced a full 3rd year and knowing that, you know what, many students choose NYCPM because of the clinical training. So the relevance of your experience in 3rd year, kind of tie it all together, and then talk about your 4th year and what that experience has been like.
Sure. So just like some background, I know we've talked a lot about like clinical, preclinical, like all these different things. So your first 2 years, you're mostly studying, and then you take your boards, and then you go to clinical, just to kind of like put some context into it. So your clinical at NYCPM is at Lincoln Hospital, Harlem Hospital, Metropolitan Hospital, and Morrisania, which are some of the public hospitals in New York. So you get a really unique perspective because you're working with so many different types of people, like people that speak different languages, people from all over the world. Like it's really such a unique experience that I think really only NYCPM can give you. I don't think the other podiatry schools have that type of exposure. So I think it's awesome because your whole 3rd year, that's the environment you're training in. And you also have the clinic at school. After that, your 4th year, you're allowed 5 externships. So externships are when you pick outside hospitals that you would like to go to and learn more at, and then maybe potentially go to residency. So every fourth year has the opportunity to pick where they'd like to go. You can stay in New York. You can, go anywhere in the country, really. So I've mostly stayed in the New York, New Jersey area. I was at University Hospital associated with Rutgers, Jersey Shore, which is associated with Hackensack Meridian, and then I was just at Montefiore in the Bronx. And then next month I'll be going to Emory, and in December I'll be going to New York Presbyterian Queens. So we go all over. If you want to go to California, you can go to California. If you want to stay here, that's an option too. But I think the great thing about podiatry that no one really realizes is there's more residency spots than there are residents. So you really have a lot of say in where you get to go. My friends that are dealing with MD-DO applications right now don't have that same privilege. So I think it's something important to keep in mind when you're applying, deciding where you want to go, is you have a lot more freedom with podiatry. And the residency is only 3 years. So, that also is something to keep in mind. If you want to be, a general surgeon, you would have to be in residency for 5, 6, 7 years. I don't even know how long it is, but it's a lot longer. So if you know that you want to do surgery and you know that this is, the environment that's the environment you want to be in, I think podiatry is an amazing field. Going into these externships, I felt super prepared. There weren't a lot of things that I felt unsure about. It's actually super funny. I'm in my emergency medicine rotation right now, and we're with a bunch of MD students from, I'm not going to say what school, but a really good school. And then there's me, the podiatry student, and we're in the emergency room today, and the attending looks over and he's like, why is our podiatry student so much better than our MD students? Like, I wish we had like 5 of her. And I was like, oh my gosh, so what I'm trying to say is, the training here is amazing. You're around, such a diverse, not only pathology, but the type of people that live in New York City. I don't think that's an experience that you can replicate anywhere else. And I think that when you go to other hospitals or you're around students that trained other places, there's a noticeable difference. Like, you're so comfortable clinically, you're comfortable surgically. I remember my 3rd year, I was in the OR my first week, which was a little scary at first because I was like, wow, this is really soon. I think it was like 2 weeks after I took boards, I was in the operating room. But the doctors at NYCPM are big on mentorship. They're big on, making sure that you feel like you have the tools to succeed and the guidance to be able to, not only do right, for your patients, but also feel confident when you go somewhere else. So that's kind of my experience so far. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Ellie. So maybe we can talk more about your personal experiences. Like, can you share with us some of the activities that you've been involved with at NYCPM, leadership, research, and such? Should we start with Emily?
Sure. Okay, so because I'm in my 2nd year, I'm still kind of getting, into that stuff. But as far as like our clubs and stuff that we offer, we have a ton of clubs. We do a club fair at the beginning, or I should say in August, where you can sign up for the clubs that you want to join. All the clubs are there at a little table, and you can kind of ask questions and see if that's something you want to join. I'm currently a member of the LGBTQ plus in podiatry club that we actually just started. One of my friends and I got together and decided to, start a club. So if that's something you want to do too, if there's a club that you don't see and you want to make it a thing, like, go ahead. Like, that'll look really good on your resume too. So there's clubs for anything. There's also a lot of leadership opportunities. You can be a class president, or you could be a student association president. Like, you can kind of do, find your leadership position, whether that be just your class, whether that be the school. And then I'm also an alumni representative, which is kind of a really cool a little leadership position that I have. It gives me the opportunity to meet some of the alumni and learn about what they're doing right now, especially because some of them are still in New York and some of them are like obviously far away. So it's cool to see that their training and all of the things that they did at NYCPM are paying off, and that they're, out practicing, doing cool things with patients or anything like that. Trying to think anything else. I think that's it. I mean, a lot of time is spent studying.
You're
Yes,
also a
student
student
ambassador. Yeah, so I get to interview potential students, which is always fun, because I remember being in that position, being all scared and all nervous and bright-eyed about, you know, the opportunity to be a doctor. So yeah, there's endless opportunities here and you can take advantage of them and they'll pay off.
Thank you. Block?
So at NYCPM, let me think. Okay. So I'm the vice president of my class I was this year and then last year. I've been an EC, which an EC is an education committee member, which is there. It's anyway. I like how NYCPM does a lot of its like exam like protocol because there's times like I remember in undergrad where you had to like you didn't have a say in whether you got any questions back because if the questions were like unfair. And so the ECs, that's what they do. They fight for like the students like, oh, this question was worded poorly, oh, this was not taught, or any things like that. And so I've been an EC for several classes. I'm a TA for farm currently, but I've been a TA for a couple other classes, tutor for a few classes. Um, let's see, student ambassador. I'm not gonna forget that one. Let's see. Oh yeah, and then I just got elected as a 2025 rep for the NYCPM ACPM chapter. Yeah, that's what I do here. Oh, and I work at the library.
Is that it?
I think that's it. I think.
That's a lot to juggle. Ellie?
So I was a TA, I think as many semesters as I possibly could be. And it's actually one of the reasons that I chose NYCPM. I felt like it was really nice that they had TAs and tutors for most of the classes. So I always felt supported in my first year. So I felt like after that, like I kind of always took the time to be a TA or a tutor because it helped me so much. I remember even like they were talking about how fourth semester can be kind of tough. Like I remember it was my fourth semester and I got a tutor for a class and they were great. And I think that's a really big important thing about going to NYCPM is there's always someone to help you along the way if you reach out. Like there's always someone to help you or guide you if you feel like you're academically struggling, which I think is something important to think about in medical school because it's 4 years, it's a lot of studying, it's different from undergrad. So it's important to ask yourself, like, do I think this is somewhere that's going to support me on this journey? So that's something that I feel really passionately about. And then my first 2 years, I actually had a job on the weekends. So I worked at a community college teaching like workshops and stuff. So I kept the job my full first 2 years. So I think that was really awesome. And then I actually do research with the podiatry group at Mass General. And that was something that NYCPM set me up to do. So I'm very thankful for that. We're working on a project about Morton's neuroma, which is like a nerve problem in the foot. So that, and then and I do this with the students, which I love because I think podiatry is like the best kept secret in medicine. So any way I can try to convince people to come to podiatry school, I always am like, yeah, you should be a podiatrist. So
Ellie's being very humble. That research project that she was included on is a big deal. That said, actually, you hit upon a good point. I should have started with, if you guys can share with us why you chose to pursue podiatric medicine and also share with us why you decided on NYCPM. So let's start with Ellie and then go backwards.
okay, so when I was an undergrad, I had an advisor tell me that I was never going to be a doctor. He was like, "You're never going to be a doctor." I was like, I think I was like 4 months into undergrad. And so I thought I wanted to be a doctor forever. And then I was like, maybe I'll become a lawyer. And then my mom called me one day and she was like, I just went to the podiatrist. They have like all these cool tools and like instruments and they're like so hands-on. Like you should be a podiatrist. And I like laughed at her and I was like, Mom, I'm not going to be a podiatrist. Like that's gross. And then I went and I shadowed a podiatrist and he was so nice. He was actually a sports medicine podiatrist out in the Midwest. And he spoke at NYCPM last year. And it was so funny because I like got on the Zoom and I was like, hey, like it's me. And he was like, oh my gosh. And he was so cool. And I remember every podiatrist I met before I went to podiatry school always told me that they would make this decision again and that they were happy. And that's something that when I asked other doctors, like they couldn't really confidently say. They were like, oh, become this type of doctor, like, or become this. And every podiatrist was like, no, I love it, like do it. So that was kind of what brought me into podiatry. The reason I picked NYCPM, I actually only applied to 2 schools and I knew I was going to only go to NYCPM. The other one was just kind of like, because my mom told me I should fly somewhere else. I always knew I was going to go to NYCPM because I visited and I met a bunch of the students, and I remember saying to myself, like, oh, these are people that like I could study with or I could get dinner with. Like I felt like they were people I could be friends with, and that was what I was looking for. Like I wanted to feel like I was going to fit in with the people there, because I knew that it was going to be a long journey, and I wanted to feel like I like I belonged, you know. And I think no matter what type of person you are, like I said, because of the diversity here, like you're always going to find a group of friends. You're always going to find a community to fit in with, because there's so many different people. So I just love that. And then when I saw the clinic and I saw that aspect of things, like I knew like this was going to be the best clinical training. So it was kind of the people and the hands-on like clinic that kind of got me here. For just like some context, like our clinic in the Bronx, Lincoln, we see anywhere from 80 to 100 patients a day. Like that's volume that you just kind of aren't going to get anywhere else. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Talak, do you want to take it next?
Sure. Yeah, Ellie hit on a good point, is like the volume is like like there's obviously like quality over quantity, but in like medicine, a lot of these things, it's a quantity game. Like until you see enough patients, you worked up enough patients, you've done like it's there's something to be said about just the absolute like volume that you'll see at NYCPM versus a lot of the other programs. And let's see. Oh yeah. So podiatry, why I like deviated towards podiatry was was a time where it was like I didn't know what I was doing. Was I doing MD-DO? What was I doing? And then like I think that's one of the things like to quote Ellie is like podiatry is definitely one of like the best kept secrets in medicine. And it's like once I found out about podiatry, I was like, this is like a no-brainer. This is like this is like perfect. And it's that podiatry is like you're limited, yes, by like location, but you're not limited in terms of the in-depth. You are the master of a location. You're going to know the derm, you're going to know the oncology, you're going to know the musculoskeletal, the biomechanics, you're going to know like everything there is to know about the like the lower extremity. That's your job, you know. Like there's too many times. And like we also look at a lot of other a lot of the other fields, like with MDs, like when you ask, let's say someone who's 10 years into their like after becoming like a cardiologist, they're like 10 years into their practice. You ask them anything outside of cardiology, they don't know like anything. If you ask them anything on, if you ask them like what like acidic keratosis is, they don't know because they forget, you know. And so like all you're doing with podiatry is you're guaranteed surgical specialty. You're a master in your field, and you're just picking that mastery early on. You're, as Dr. Volpe says, who's like one of my favorite professors here. He's like, you're going to be a world leading expert in the foot and ankle. Like it's amazing, you know. Like it's like you're just like there's something to just being a master at your craft, and I think that's what podiatry allows.
Thank you, Talak. Emily, if you want to share with us how you learned about pediatric medicine, decided on this path, and then decided to come to New York.
Of course. So I already mentioned this a little bit, but I'm a huge runner. In college, I ran in college and I was hurt quite a lot. And every time I would go to the doctor, they just would be like, I don't know what this is. Like, you know, maybe it's just plantar fasciitis, or maybe it's just Achilles tendonitis, like just, you know, easy answers. But it wasn't until like I had this injury that would not get better for forever that I was like, there's got to be somebody that can help me. And I, you know, just Google searched. I was like, good doctors with like fee, you know, it's kind of a stupid Google search like that. And I was like, wait a second, there's a doctor for the foot. Um, so, I mean, that kind of started my journey. And then, like Ellie had mentioned, I went and shadowed a bunch of podiatrists. And one thing that was like across the board, all of them had to say was they had such a great work-life balance, which is something that if you ask an MD or a DO, I don't mean to like say anything bad about them because every career is great in its own way, but it's hard to find a career where you can call yourself a doctor and be have such a good work-life balance and be so happy with your career choice and recommend it to, you know, a bunch of generations to come. That stuck with me, and I was like, I want to get into this. I want to be a part of this. Um, And then as far as New York City, I honestly, my reason is not anything academic. It's just I came to the city once and I was like, I want to live here. Like the New York City is amazing. And you can only, if you come here when you're 20 or when you're whatever age you are, like you're going to be able to say that you went to medical school in New York City, which is awesome. Obviously, all of the diversity and everything helps too, but the city is just, it's unbeatable. So it's definitely why I picked it.
Great. Thanks, Emily. I know many other students from out of state shared that thought with you. I think it's fair to say that New York City itself is like a campus for our students. Um, Maybe you can, I can vouch for all of our student panel here that they're all very strong students. So that said, for potential prospective future students, can you share with us your secret to balancing your studies with all your other activities? Do you have any wisdom to share? This is a free for all. Anyone can unmute themselves.
I mean, I'm a chronic procrastinator. I always have been. It will never change. I just had like a residency program ask me my greatest flaw, and I was like, I like procrastinate. And they were like, are you like gonna like fix that? And I was like, probably not. So medical school's hard. I think no matter where you're coming from in life, like it's a difficult adjustment. But I think the most important thing that I learned from the whole experience was one, like it's a personal journey. Like what you think as like your best is going to be different from someone else's. So never compare yourself to other people, because what you're shooting for and what they're shooting for might be very different. You might just want to pass and they might want 100. So, you don't have to share with other people how you're doing. Just be content with where you are. I think the other thing that I always focused on is I always sleep enough. Like I'll nap when I get back from classes. I go to bed early. Like I prioritize sleep. I prioritize like seeing my friends and my family. Like even during the hardest semesters, like my friends would drag me out to brunch every Sunday because they were like, you've been studying all week, like you have to do something else. So I think those things kept me very like grounded throughout all of it. I think also just having good friends. I think the friends that I made at NYCPM will be my friends for the rest of my life. Like even now, like we haven't been together the past few months because of externships. I still talk to a lot of them every day. So, those are things that I think really can push you through and make a big difference.
Awesome. Anyone else?
I think that one of the important things that's like, I guess like, and I think Ellie had a really good point, is that it's what you want to get out of the education. I think that like if you don't have to work very hard, or you do like the effort that you'd like and you're getting the results that you want, I think that like there's no reason to compare. There's no reason to like, it's like, oh, this person got an A, this person got a C, whatever, right? But I think one of the most important things I've learned in my time here is that when it's work time, it's work time. When it's time to like relax, it's time to relax. If it hits like 7 p.m., I'm going to the gym. I am not studying anymore. I am going to have my gym time. I'm going to have my free time. I'm going to go to bed. Like I think that there is also, I think in my first 2 years, my like biggest regret was like not calling my like family enough. And I think like setting apart that time, like was I think respecting yourself and having times for studying, having times for having fun, making sure you call your loved ones, like those are, I think, like being very, just for me, like having a schedule was really good, and cutting times off when it was time. Like if I'm not gonna fight the clock. If it's 7 o'clock and I told myself I was gonna be done at 7, I was like, oh, I'll do a few more chapters. That's just me sacrificing sleep more, which I forgot who told me this, it was a long time ago, but you're not a product of how hard you can work, you're a product of what you can recover from. And so it's a lot of like everybody can like pull an all-nighter and like just bury themselves into the ground, but like you're not going to do it too many nights in a row. You're going to sacrifice somewhere. And I think that like knowing your limits and being very strict with your schedule is what made the biggest difference.
Um, Emily, do you want to add, or should I go on to the next question?
I was just gonna add, like they were saying, just making sure that there's time for the things that matter to you because you don't want to get to the end of the semester when it really counts, be burnt out like I am right now. So make sure that you make time for yourself, because when it matters and when finals roll around, you want to be sharp and you want to be bright. So make time for yourself.
Awesome. Emily, remember that. Emily's going through a hard semester right now. So we do have a few questions. So one of the questions is, and I believe all of our students currently joining us are all fall students. Is that right? Any January students here? I don't believe so. Yeah. Okay. But the question is, what are your thoughts on the January program versus the fall? Anyone wants to take this?
I can take this. I mean, a lot of my friends are January students. I think that looking back, like I graduated early. I graduated in December. I don't think it would have been the end of the world to start in January. I think it gives you more, I think especially if you're coming from maybe like not being in school, like maybe you took some time off and you're going back. It's a nice like introduction into being back into that environment. Also, you kind of are putting in the work earlier to and it pays off later, like you kind of are getting some classes knocked out earlier. I mean, I think it's a great option. I think we're actually the only school that offers it too, so if that's something that you're looking for, this is really the only place that you're gonna be able to do it. And I think whether you're in the January or the fall program, like, I think you're going to get very similar experiences. I think what's nice is the January program, like they all start at the same time. So you kind of have like a built-in friend group, like they're all together for a semester. So like as the rest of medical school goes on, like you'll always be really close with those people, which I think is really nice too. So I think there's a lot of advantages to it. It just depends what your personal situation looks like.
I think, as you said, the friend group, if you're in the January class, you first join the current first year class, and then in the fall, you join the new incoming first year class. So you have two friend groups sort of located in two different classes, and it just, I think that also helps with the networking and such. Anyone else want to add to any thoughts on the January versus fall? I know there are times when some fall students do get jealous of the January students because of their time to study, but other than that, would you like to add anything?
I think that like because yeah, I think there's an obvious advantage in the second semester with the January students, but to their I think detriment in the third semester, like the everybody else's third semester, they do get hit with like a ton of bricks. Like the credit load jumps up like really quickly. So I think there's a give and take with it. Yes, you get a lot of like free time. You do get a lot more like you have like 12 credits in like the everybody else's second semester if you're a January student, but then you jump up to I think like 25 in like the third semester. So it's like you will some and I think work ethic definitely like consistent work ethic will keep you afloat, but it is a big jump for a lot of the January students. So I think it is a very like big benefit. If like I remember there was a student that was recommended the January program because they just had a kid. And so having a full credit load was like maybe not the best idea, but the January program was a good idea. So there was like that's your situation definitely is important. But I think there's pros and cons either way.
Yes, and so everyone knows the makeup of our classes. Usually the January class consists of maybe a quarter of the full class. So 25% of the students in each class are from the January program, and they eventually join the fall program, the fall cohort. In terms of the next question, it's in terms of shadowing. What does the average applicant tend to have, and is 10 hours too little, even though you are certain it's for you? The number of shadowing hours is really up to the individual student. Some students just shadow for 3 hours and know that this is for them. Some students shadow multiple doctors for 50 hours. It's what's important to you, but I think it's it's a good idea to shadow more than one DPM, because each DPM's practice, if they're in private practice or they're subspecialty, if they're in a hospital, healthcare network, the experience is going to be different. So to learn the full range of what pediatric medicine has to offer, the recommendation is to try to shadow 2-3 doctors. And at NYCPM, we're more than happy to put you in contact to match you up with a DPM if you cannot find a DPM on your own. The next question I think is for our upperclassmen. Are clinical rotations primarily in-state, or are there out-of-state rotations? What makes it special? Ellie, I think you're the person to cover this.
Okay, so basically your third year, no matter what podiatry program you're at, whether you're here, whether you're at a different school, you're gonna rotate with like your your home hospitals almost, like picture it like that. So you're gonna be at the hospitals that your school is associated with. Every podiatry school have different associations. So ours is the public hospitals in New York. So the ones that I mentioned, so Metropolitan, Harlem, Lincoln, and Morrisania. So those are based in Harlem and the Bronx. You can easily take the subway to all the hospitals from the school. I always took the subway or the bus. So that's where you're going to spend your third year. So that the third year is set, like the school basically sets that up for you. You don't do anything. You just show up wherever they tell you to, but you're never going to be somewhere like super inconvenient. You're always going to be at those places. So if you live in the area, you live nearby, or, you know, you commute from New Jersey, New York, whatever, they're easy to get to. Then your fourth year, again, no matter what podiatry school you go to, you're going to extern. So extern means like outside. So you're able to pick whatever hospitals you want outside of the area. I think the thing to remember about this is like wherever your school is, those are the kind of doctors, like we're in New York, right? So a lot of our doctors are from New York, or they went to residency in New York. So they know the residency directors here. They know the doctors around here. We have a couple attendings from other places, so they know the attendings there. So, you know, you kind of get that exposure, and you get an idea of where you want to go. I knew that I mostly wanted to stay in New York, New Jersey, so I externed mostly around here, but I have friends that are going to California. I have friends that are going to Texas, to Michigan, you know, all over the place. So that fourth year, you're allowed to go wherever you want. And I think the most, what you should really be looking for is a school that's going to prepare you for those away months, because those away months that you go somewhere else, those are the programs that you really are looking to go to residency at. So a lot of students, usually pick a residency that they externed with. I think the statistic is like 2 out of 3 students pick a program that they externed at, and then 1 out of 3 don't. I mean, Dean Lee probably knows better than I do, but that's a stat I heard, and I was like, that probably sounds about right. So yeah. So hopefully that kind of explained things for you. And then you kind of go back and forth with, the different programs to kind of figure out where you're going each month. And the school definitely helps you. They advise you, they guide you. You're able to talk to alumni from NYCPM. Like our alumni network is huge. I think the statistic is like 1 in 4 podiatrists graduated from NYCPM. So no matter where you go, there's usually one of us. So you keep that in mind. If you want to reach out to a doctor at a program that you really want to go to residency at, you say, okay, who graduated from here? You reach out from them, you talk to them, and they're always happy to have someone from NYCPM usually. So yeah.
Thank you, Ellie. Okay, next question is, any recommendations on what to do during your gap year for podiatry school? Any recommendations for extracurricular, etc.?
Are we saying gap year in terms of you've been accepted, you're going to be attending, or is it to build up your resume for the application?
I'm not sure if the student wants to clarify, but I'm going to guess during, it's hard to say. We don't know if they're an applicant or the
I mean, I had 6 months off.
He says it's in terms of applying.
Oh, then yeah, no, I didn't do it. I traveled and I like waitress, so I'm probably not the person to answer this question. But both great experiences to do before you go to medical school. Like, I think everyone should have like a customer service job before they go into medicine, because it's all about talking to people. So I think that's a great extracurricular. I remember when I had my interview with Dr. Trusid, who's like the dean of preclinical. She was like, tell me all about your waitressing job. Like, tell me all about your beach job. And I was like, okay. And we talked about it, and she loved it. And she was like, wow, like those are good life skills. And I was like, yeah. So that's always a good thing to do.
Yeah, I was a driver's ed instructor and an Allstate insurance agent during my period of time off. I think so, like in terms of applying, I think that if you have a whole year, potentially like maybe become a scribe, maybe maybe something like medicine related, like I forget what like it's not you're not an RN, but there's like a kind of like a very intermediary, like early like cert you can get. I forget what it's called, but there is like a it's like nurse's assistant or something. I don't know what the terminology is, but it's like something that's going to get you exposed to the field more and maybe build up your acumen for the field. But I don't think that it's like you look at your application and be honest with yourself. And if you feel that it's lacking in certain places, then you build up those parts of the application. If you feel they're lacking in medical experience, then start. I think scribing is great. I think from all the people that I've talked to, scribing has been like really helpful for them. Or maybe EMT, like there's so many ways to like get involved in medicine and just kind of get your like foot wet. Yeah, and I think they're just try something. And also like when you before you start here, don't do anything. Go goof off. Go just like live your life for like a second if you're like possible because the work will come, I promise. And so like please enjoy it while you can because the breaks are short and they're minimal.
Emily, any other advice you have?
Yeah, I'll just add, I know a couple of my classmates that had previous medical experience, whether it be, I think Talak, you were trying to say CNA, but like anything like that where you kind of get those terms put in your brain or, you have a patient that you can recall, um, just builds your toolbox so that when you hear it being presented in a class, you can be like, oh yeah, I remember I saw a patient with Marfan syndrome, when I worked as a CNA or something like that. So it just kind of allows you to have more brain power when you're going into exams and anything like that.
And I can say for sure, like our students that come in with medical scribing experience, they do very well in the program. Another question we have, do you ever find yourself being treated differently in hospitals in comparison to MDs or DOs, as often there can be stigmas associated? I think Ellie, you might be a good person to take this question.
Yeah, so I think so when we're at NYCPM, we do a rotation with vascular surgery and we also do a rotation with internal medicine. Both rotations, I always felt very respected. I always felt taken seriously. I think now that I've been on externships in outside hospitals, I've worked with a lot of different services. So I've worked with plastic surgeons, I've worked with ortho, I've worked with gen surge, I've worked with infectious disease. Like I probably most specialties that you can think of I've, had to talk to or consult or, whatever interaction. I remember 1 month on externships, I did a whole workshop with plastic surgeons about angiosomes in the foot and how to do skin grafts for the lower extremity. And never once did the plastic surgeon treat me like anything less than, another surgeon. I never felt talked down to. I never felt disrespected. This week I started my ED rotation. Again, I've worked with a lot of different services on my ED rotation. Anytime I tell someone I'm a podiatry student, they're like, let me tell you how much I love my podiatrist. That's such a cool field. Someone today literally was like, I keep telling my son he should be a podiatrist. And I was like, yeah, like he should be. So I think that the awareness around the field is getting much more out there. I think other doctors are really starting to, understand the scope of practice that we have and, what we're able to do. And I think that when you become a podiatrist, the most important thing to remember is that podiatrists before you have made that happen, right? So whenever you're on outside services, so like I'm on EMED right now, and whenever podiatry things come up, I say, oh, what about this? What about that? Like I was trying to convince one of the PAs to let me like take a foreign body out of somebody's foot in the emergency room today, and they're like, we cannot do that, and I'm like, we totally can, and they were like, I love what you're thinking, but like maybe we should like send them to outpatient. So, I always have felt like my ideas, were taken seriously. And I think that, now that we're a surgical residency now that we have all these things going for us, yes, I've always been treated as an equal. So hopefully that answers your question and gives you some ease about that stigma.
Great.
There's an example, we were talking to the Advocate Christ residents, which is like one of the residencies I want to do. It's in the Chicagoland area. You're doing so many things in your residency. You're building up your like knowledge base because like Ellie says, you're rotating with everyone. I think the Lauren, she's like the one of the residents at Advocate Christ. She's like, yeah, you're cracking open chests and you're like hands deep in their chest for because you're like so close with like the vascular team. Like you're doing everything. Like your respect is earned when you have taken the role seriously as a podiatrist and you've built up your knowledge base and you know what you're talking about. If you take it seriously and every time they ask you a question, you know stuff, you've earned the respect. If you sit there and you're just like silent and you don't know anything that they're talking about, then yeah, of course, like it doesn't look good. But I think that it's your job to earn respect for podiatry. Like you're supposed to build up the field, right? Like the field it's in its infancy. It's only can go up from here. And I think that it's like our jobs to do that.
Also,
Great.
I think, oh, sorry, one last thing. Literally last comment, sorry. Also, as a podiatrist, you're going to do outside rotations during residency. So you have to rotate through outside services. I didn't know that when I was applying. So your residency, you're going to do a month with internal medicine. You're going to do a month with emergency medicine. You're going to do, a month with vascular, a month with gen surg, all those different things. So you're going to work closely with those people. And even now, like on externships this week, we had someone like coding and we had someone that they were worried was going to code. And they looked at me and they were like, well, you're going to do the chest compressions. And I was like, you're going to let the podiatry student do the chest compressions? And they were like, yeah, of course. Like, you're one of us. Like, what do you mean? And I was like, yeah, oh, okay, sure. So, I mean, even there are sometimes where I'm like, you're going to let me do that. Like I helped a plastic surgeon like stitch up someone's face on one of my externships. Like I've always been treated as an equal. Sometimes I'm like, I'm even like, you're going to let the podiatry student do this. But yeah, like they really have, I've always been treated as an equal. So I just wanted to drive home the point that, even though you're a podiatrist, you're also going to rotate with those specialties. So you're also going to learn more about what they do and be able to incorporate that into what you do. So there's like a lot of crossover.
Awesome. Thank you. I see right now it is close to 7 o'clock, so maybe it might be fitting to end with a question. What do you think is an advantage of NYCPM? Emily, do you want to start that?
Sure. I would say the biggest advantage is I want to say the city, but I'm going to come up with something different. Oh, I have a good one. The knowledge that our staff and our faculty and our professors have. I mean, you think about it, and the city is huge. So if you're gonna have, the best professor, a professor, they're gonna be good. Like all of our professors have such extensive backgrounds. Like that was incredible to me when I would hear about, what some of our faculty have done in the past or are currently doing. Like they're so knowledgeable and they have so many opportunities like that they can just tell you about if you ask. So having incredible faculty is huge, and that's gonna pay off in dividends in the future for as long as you practice.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, Talak, I see you've unmuted.
Sorry. I was like clicking it like 3 times. I'm sorry. I think I forgot to answer this earlier. It was the curriculum rigor was one of the main reasons I came to NYCPM. And it was because NYCPM does a great job of bringing in like specialists from like every field to do the lectures. Like for pathophysiology, we have a doctor who only does renal, doctor only does lung pathology, only does cardiology, like to do all of our lectures. And the exams are difficult. They all tell us like this is the exam I gave to the Like the DO score I gave to the MD school. This is the same exam, you know, like, and the difference is we don't curve our exams most of the time. They curve their exams. So it's we're actually in a harder boat, but we still do well. You know, like I think that the curriculum rigor was like the main reason why I felt that this was like, because you become like battle hardened when you're like done here. You're like ready to take on the world when you go off to externships. Like I'm ready to go.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Ellie?
I know I've talked about a lot of different things, but I think now that I'm on externships, I want to say I don't want to say I'm unfazable. I don't want to say that nothing shocks me. Obviously things shock me, but I think NYCPM kind of prepared me to take on anything. So when it comes to clinic, when it comes to surgery, like I mean, I remember I scrubbed like I don't know, maybe like a 6-hour case or like a 7-hour case last month. And the other students I was with was like, how did you like do that? And I was like, I don't know. Like I just feel like I got to the point where it was kind of like I was able to take on whatever was given to me. I remember last year in clinic as a student, I mean, I had a kid come in and their foot got ran over by a car. I had a guy come in whose leg, you know, the MTA doors like closed on his foot, you know, all these, you know, people, you know, tumbling over their motorized scooters, all these crazy things that as a student you see, and you work it up by yourself. You go present to the attending, you and the attending go see them, and you're kind of like fostered along the way. Like you kind of learn how to think on your own. You know, you don't just have one diagnosis, you have like 6, and you're like, okay, well, what's going to get me to the right answer? And I think, you know, the diagnosis 2 through 6 is what puts NYCPM apart from everybody else. I heard an attending say that this month or last month or sometime on externships. And I was like, wow, that's like a really good way to put it. Like the NYCPM advantage is those diagnoses 2 through 6. Like it's seeing that many patients that you're able to be like, okay, well, if it's not this, like I'm worried about this, this, and this. So I think that's really the advantage I've had. And now being other places, I'm not worried about what comes in through clinic. I'm not worried about what comes into the ED. Yeah, I might see things that I've never seen before, but I know how to work it up. I know how to talk to patients. I know how to handle people from anywhere and everywhere. And I think that's really the advantage. That's not something that a lot of people are able to say like their 4th year. And again, I still have a lot to learn. I'm sure I'm going to see a lot more crazy things, but you know, at least I have the confidence to be like, okay, I'm ready. Like I'm as ready as I can be. So.
What a great way to end our webinar. Thank you so much to our student panel, our amazing students, for attending and sharing your experiences and thoughts. Thank you to our attendees. I'd like to also end our webinar by introducing our director, Agatha Castellino. She's the Director of Enrollment Management that's joining us this evening. And Alan Steinberg is our new Assistant Director. So if you have any questions, maybe we'll go to the next slide, guys. If you have any questions for us, as I said earlier, we'd be more than happy to put you in contact with an alumnus to shadow. We are strong believers and mentors. So mentoring is really important. And I think that's where you'll get your strong motivation for this profession, or just to figure out if podiatric medicine is the right pathway for you. And of course, if you have any questions about the admissions process, we also have what we call virtual advisement, where you can send in your transcript, your MCAT scores, your CV, and then we'll go through your application and maybe make some suggestions to make yourself a stronger applicant and such. So whatever help you need, we are here to help you. Once again, thank you everyone for your time this evening, and we hope that you'll join us for future webinars, and good luck to our students, exams, finals. Sorry, Emily. Ellie, let's catch up soon.